Welcome everyone to our career webinars. My name is Mirta Aguirre. I'm the head of employability at Virtual Internships. And today we have a very special session, an expert insight series. This means we have a very special expert to bring us a very interesting topic. Today's session is the Career Pivot Playbook, translating what you've done into what's next. And this is brought by Jillian Lowe. Let's delve into what we're going to learn today, right? So changing careers doesn't mean starting from scratch, right? In this session, we're going to explore why experience matters more than credentials in the actual job market, how you can actually identify transferable skills that you're probably overlooking, and how to articulate your value in a way that resonates with employers, right? So whatever you're pivoting into a new industry or into a new role, we're gonna explore how having a clear picture of what you bring into the table is essential for you to have more confidence. So who is our speaker for the day? We have Jillian Lowe. Jillian is a Chief Strategy Officer here at Virtual Internships, so she's a key person here bringing you this experience. She has supported more than 15,000 students all over the world in any real-world experience, and she has created Career Bridge, which is this amazing curriculum you have to polish your skills and be ready for your next job opportunity. She has a master's in international development and has worked in the US, in Europe, and Asia. And with lots of experience, really focuses on questions that are very important to you, which is like, how do I turn my internship experience into a real career opportunity? And how do I navigate this, especially in this AI context, right? So I'm very happy to have Jillian here with us. And without further ado, this is all yours, Jillian.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much for coming and joining and being part of this opportunity to talk about the Career Pivot Playbook. So in working at Virtual Internships and in my past careers working in 6 different countries in internships, workforce development, and more, I have seen a lot of resumes and CVs. I've seen a lot of applications and profiles. And what I can say is on average, the most people are terrible at presenting what they can do in the future. They're okay at saying what they've done in the past. And really what this is about is how we can figure out how can we translate our past to our future potential. And that's going to be the most important thing that we can kind of unpack. And so that's really the focus of this chat today. But what I'd first love to know is 1, can we all use the hand raise button in Zoom? And 2, who are you? So please raise your hand if you are a pivot pro. So if you are 6+ years with work experience on your resume, you have full-time work experience for 6+ years, and you're looking to change careers. And so it means you have a lot of experience, but you're still trying to figure out what's the next. Maybe this is your first degree, maybe it's a different opportunity. You're trying to figure that out. Amazing. So I have 2 career pivoters. I love it. I'm going to lower your 3. Love it even more. I'm going to lower your hands, and I am now going to ask, who are the builders who have just worked 1 to 6 years? They've gained some experience, but they're still trying to make that next move. Who has that kind of experience that they're looking for? Please let me know. If you are doing an undergrad degree and you've done an internship before, that's 0 years of experience. I know that sucks. If you've done a full summer, 3 months, that's still 0 years of experience. So it's anybody who has worked full time for 1 to 6 years. We got 1. Okay. And who are launchers? Who are in their first, entering their first professional experience? Maybe they're in their undergrad degree. Maybe they're experiencing everything else. Who is kind of exploring that? All right, so far I have about, we're getting more, and everybody's figuring out on the Zoom where the little hand raise button is. I know everybody has their own little thing. Perfect. All right, so I have about 6 or 7 in the launcher and some who have not identified or maybe don't identify with any of these, and that's totally okay. But now that we have all practiced, do note that you can raise your hand at any time, or if I ask for volunteers, please raise your hand and we can get some conversations two-way. I want this to be as dynamic and as available for a conversation as possible. So in getting started, I'm going to start with a question that I'm sure you thought I was going to ask, right? Which is, you're remodeling your kitchen. How do you pick your contractor? So you might not have a kitchen yet, especially if you're just starting a career. I don't own a kitchen that I could remodel. I rent, but just picture you have the money all of a sudden. You want to remodel your kitchen. What are the first things that you are going to look for? Feel free to chat that in the chat box, or if you want to give your answer, raise your hand and I would be happy to call on you and see what you'd like to say. But how are you going to pick the contractor to remodel? What are the first things you're going to look for? Thank you, Min. You're going to research the contractors and you're going to look for reputations. You're going to look for an experienced contractor. Patricia's like, no, I already know a guy. They're going to go to my handyman and they're going to either give me a referral or they're going to do it myself. Perfect. And this is exactly right, right? So the first thing we're going to do is look at their past projects. Do they have kitchens that they've redone? But actually, most importantly, do they have kitchens that they've redone that looks like the kitchen you want in your head? Because I don't want just any kitchen. I want the kitchen in my heart of hearts. And you need to show me that you can do that, right? And I want to know references, reviews, and more. What have other people said about them? What can happen? And then finally, I'm going to look at their credentials. But let me just point that out. Not one of you just said you were looking at their credentials. Going to be honest, it's not the first thing we look at. I might never look at it because I just want my kitchen done and it's hard to find the right talent and more. I'm going to really focus more on their past projects and do other people verify them. And so there's two things to take away in this conversation. First is that really all of that doesn't matter if you all of a sudden wanted to get your kitchen redone and you said, "Hey, I need to do a re-kitchen," and you asked your neighbor and they were like, "Oh, no, I just had my kitchen redone. Here's a contractor." Let me just be very clear. That referral trumps everything. That's a network. And so the number one thing you can do to get a job is your network. I'm not talking about that today. So unfortunately, it's not going to be the most important topic today. But in your job search, if you are not actively doing informational interviews, posting on LinkedIn and engaging with new people, going to networking events, attending webinars such as this, and trying to build that network, you are missing the number one thing that will get you a job because this person who recommended their contractor, I wouldn't need to check their website. I wouldn't need to check a lot of other things. I have the approval of the person I know, and that's going to trump a lot of things. So, network is really important. But going back to really that slide before, the other one that's really important is that experience is trumping credentials in a lot of ways that we look to fill a job. And that's exactly what employers are saying. So if we go to the NACE, which is a US-based National Associations of Colleges Employers, it's all about connecting degrees with jobs and employers with universities. And they'll go and ask, hey, all these employers who are looking to hire recent graduates, both pivoters with lots of experience but getting their first degree, or first-time degree holders and with lack of work experience, all types of different learners. What's the most important? And time again, people are going, well, it's internships and then co ops and then work experience and then apprenticeships and maybe projects and maybe micro internships. All of that is the most important thing. And if you look down below, 42% of companies screen by GPA. That is down from 73% 7 years ago, which means your score, the degree that you get, and the quality or the ranking of your degree is no longer actually viewed by a lot of companies. And in fact, 70% of companies are using skills based and they're citing that at work experience. So once again, they're not leveraging credentials, they're leveraging experience plus network plus skills. And so that really is what drives a lot of what we need to figure out is okay, one, how do I build experience? But two, if I already have experience, it's just not that perfect A plus A and it's the same job. How do I pivot that experience? Moreover, we do have this crazy, crazy world right now. So raise your hand if you have used AI in the last 48 hours. Oh, yeah, amazing. And had I asked this a year ago, that would have been half the number. If I had asked this 3 years ago, you might not have been raising your hands. So the world is changing and it's changing super quick. And according to the World Economic Forum, 39% of core skills will change by 2030. 170 million new jobs will be created this decade alone. And half of those job titles we didn't know existed until this year. So they're jobs we didn't know were going to be created. They're changing what skills we need. And we know that 92 million jobs will also be displaced. So those software programmers who just learned how to code might not be so agile there, but they can change their skills, upskill, and then replace. And in fact, the New York Times just came out with a great article that you should all read about the impact of AI on your job. You can even type in your job title and it shows you the risk. And there's a lot of great opportunity to see that you have a lot of reskilling. But 59% of the workforce needs to be reskilling. So the number one barrier to business transportation and transformation and all this rapid change that's happening is skills gap. And 63% of employers said is a primary challenge. So now we know this challenge. 70% of employers are using skills-based hiring. So they're looking for skills when they hire. 97% are looking for experience over everything else. And we have this perfect storm that you as a candidate need to show your skills, show your experience, and show why you are the best to stand out in an AI-driven world. But first, let's just think. Will your job that you want, or maybe the job that you have right now, exist the same way it does today in 10 years? What do you think might change? Type it out, or once again, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. But how do you think the jobs will change, your job specifically, in the next 10 years? I'll tell you one way my job has changed while you all type yours is I work in strategy. And you know what people in strategy, consulting, any of that spend a lot of their time doing? Making PowerPoints. And honestly, it's the number one thing. So everybody who wants to be a consultant, just remember it's making PowerPoints all day long. This PowerPoint was made by AI. Yes, it's all my content. It's absolutely my word. I did it. But before, I would have spent 2 hours formatting and contextualizing this. And instead, I spent just 1 hour putting my thoughts on paper, putting my format and everything. That's a huge change. And it means that now a portion of my day is freed up, and that could either be backfilled with new or less people will be hired in consultation, sales, strategy, because so much of that has changed. And that's just one simple thing. PowerPoint is no longer created by the person, it's created by the AI, and now it's who edits the content. A lot more automated customer service, absolutely. So that job might not exist in 10 years. Customer service might be totally AI bot using a CRM and human chatbots that have very realistic conversation. Absolutely. A customer service manager who manages all the chatbot might exist, but that ultimately will change. And that's okay. Jobs have actually been changing all the time. We've gone through several serious moments of revolution, of industrial revolution, technology, internet, and more. And jobs have changed for the last 20 years, but they are at the most rapid pace of change. And ultimately, this leads us to the key thing, is that in 10 years, industries will evolve and disappear. Technology, as Jeffrey very smartly noted, will redefine roles. Companies will restructure, just like Leah noted about customer service. Your own passions and needs will shift. You might shift careers or might be shifting careers right now to do nothing with technological change, AI, or anything. You might just be interested in something else. You might have kids and want a remote job instead of the in-person job you have. You might want to work more because of this. You might want to work less because of capacity. You might want all these different things happening, and that ultimately changes. We talk about AI and technology a lot, but in 10 years, you are going to change. And job descriptions get rewritten. But the thing that doesn't change is transferable skills. It's the skills that carry you from one career to the next. So remember, if you go from one job to the same job to same job, right? You're a customer service rep and you go to a customer service rep, you're really moving the same skills, different nuances, different places. But if you have a different job plus new job, the skills that transfer are going to be impactful. And if we just talked about it for 10 years, all these things are really changing. So we need the most transferable skills ever. Now, let's first just make sure we're all on the same page about what a transferable skill is. Transferable skills are skills that you develop in one context that can be applied in another, regardless of the industry, role, and career stage. It can include technical skills. So please don't say it can't. It really can. Data analysis and reporting. I'll tell you the number one transferable skill that has been with me for the last 20 years of my professional career, Excel. I am more employed today and more employable today than I was before because of Excel, and they have gotten me jobs. It has allowed me to stand out in jobs and do my job better, all because of Excel. And even with AI, it still hasn't taken away my Excel use, needs case, and more. You also, on the other side, have durable skills. Now, let me be very clear. Sometimes it's called soft skills. These are not soft. They are highly, highly, highly important, and they are durable. They are long lasting. And in the face of rapid change, especially with technology, they might be the things that outlast us all, more so than databases, which can now be updated by AI, digital skills, creative skills, and more. So these durable skills look like communication and storytelling, problem solving, leadership, time management. There's a significantly long list of both technical and durable, but they're any skill that you can take from one place, like Excel, use it to make reports, pivot tables, functions, analyze current ongoings, and then apply it in a completely different context, role, place, country, or whatnot. Now, in my opinion, the number one transferable skill that we all need is adaptability and agility. It is literally the thing that will let us transfer everything else, right? We need this skill to unlock every other transferable skill. Without it, you can't identify, transfer, or translate anything else. And let me be very clear, to make a transferable skill work, you need to identify it, transfer, and translate it. You cannot just do one of those three. And the World Economic Forum ranks resilience, flexibility, and agility as the number two most sought after core skill globally. So I didn't just make this up. It is very much proven around the globe. This is what we need, but this is also the hardest part of an internship. People often get very frustrated because there's a lot of change. You're learning new things. There might be a slow to respond supervisor. You might think you deserve this kind of high level technical project and they're giving you this because rapport hasn't been built. Adaptability and agility is the number one skill that will allow you to stay in the mix of things, to adapt to a world that's not based on a syllabus, not really defined by beautiful start dates and rubrics, and succeed in the end, while also keeping up with the rate of pace of change, technology, AI, and more. So let's look at transferable skills. And I picked a role that I think we all can relate to because either you've been to a restaurant and had someone serve you, or you have been a server yourself. I myself was a server for 12 years, so I empathize with this role significantly. I was a server for about 6 years while I had my first office job just to try to pay things off. So I really did a lot of this. So let's think about you, a person who had a job at a restaurant, maybe a chain restaurant. Sorry, these are all American chain restaurants, but think of corporate restaurants that are fast casual and exist across the country that you are in. In the US, it'd be like an Olive Garden, a Chili's, Applebee's, TGI Fridays. Most people would just say, I was a server. But let's think about what you actually did. Let's try to compile the skills that you used and potential the transferability that you have. So I was a server actually lets you do all of this. One, it was a franchise, which means you were handed a terribly long book the first day, which you wouldn't think serving needed a terribly long book on how to, of corporate standards and training. You learned and executed a standardized process. Franchises are very strict about uniforms, about we used to be timed about how quickly I got to a table to serve drinks, 2 minutes, to serve appetizers, 7 minutes. It was very, very regimented. It's more regimented in the US, but trust me, if you work for a Pret in London, if you work for any chain across the globe, there is an executed standardized process because that's how they make things work at scale. And you yourself working in the system were able to adapt to corporate standards training. You, of course, also had time management. You managed multiple tables, orders, timing simultaneously. You had customer service. You served a broad, diverse range of customers. Technology systems, people always forget about this. They think a server didn't have any technology. There's a POS, a point of service system. It's what you put everything in, like a cash register for a restaurant. It's what gives the kitchen a ticket to make food. It's what lets you print out a receipt. It lets you take payments. You learned a service system for orders, changes, and notes, and you learned how to do it extremely fast. If you gave that to me, I would take forever ordering. You did sales and upselling. You did scheduling and coveraging. Most often, you were managing your own shift, your own accountability, and finding covers. You were able to prioritize and triage. You looked at one table who might need water, but you also heard the bell in the kitchen that the food was ready and had to deliver. You had to cross team collaboration. And if you didn't realize any of this, you've also sat at a restaurant, ate food, and been very impressed by the service or very unimpressed by the service because all of these skills were either being exemplified or not exemplified. So even if you haven't been a server, you have identified who has these skills and who hasn't just by poor service in a restaurant. And there we go. And unfortunately, server might have the same title, but very different skills depending on the scenario, right? If we work at an Olive Garden, a chain restaurant, you have corporate training, high volume, standardized menu and process, corporate-provided POS system, and more. But if you were a server at maybe Grand Mercy Tavern, which is a Michelin star restaurant in New York City, you're going to have small teams, hand-on training. You're going to have a slower turnover and a higher average like contract value or average table value. It's going to be $200 to $1,000 per table. People are going to be buying $500 bottles of wine. You're going to have to memorize rotating specials, deep vendor and supply knowledge, and more. So now we have different skills that are very transferable to different scenarios from the same exact job title. I will not know that if you tell me you were a server. You need to figure out how to identify the unique skills that you got as a server, translate them into the importance and value of the role that you have, and then transfer them to that role. That's how we pivot. Too often, people go, I was a server, and then they assume everybody knows what a server is, so I don't need to explain it. Or on my resume, it explained everything. But they forget that you need to identify, translate, and transfer. And that is really the key differences. So as noted, remember, if you just say I was a server, nobody sees any of these great skills that are highly transferable and can take you to the next level and change you into different industries. Now, let's take your experience as a server and then make you really talented at healthcare management, right? So if you learned a POS system, you now can learn an EHR or a database. You can do, clinical labs. You can put all that data into the CRM. If you triage tables, who needs foods, who needs the check, who needs all of that, you can prioritize patient and admin needs about everything. Who serve diverse customers, you work with diverse customers. Menu changes, you adapt to evolving healthcare protocols. You made real-time decisions under pressure. You make critical operational decisions. What I am explaining seems so natural, but let me tell you, when I look at all of your resumes, usually only the left side is explained and the right side is left unspoken. And me as a hiring manager, unfortunately, I'm not good at translating. I'm a little lazy. I'm a little overwhelmed. I have too many applicants. I don't want to do the work of translation. So if you can do the work of translation and identify, translate, and work to transfer your skills, that is how you successfully pivot careers after a lot of work experience. A server is just one example, and that's an entry-level role, but you might also have an office job, and that will have tons of transferable skills. So let's think about the skills you have right now. Write down 3 of your most accomplished skills. Think about the skills that you do day to day that you think you've kind of mastered, you feel really good about, you think make you stand out as a candidate. So for me, I maybe would say, hell, I Excel reporting and data analysis skills. Maybe I'd say my communication skills. Another one might be my customer service management skills. All 3 of those skills would be very important. And so I could write them down. So for you right now, just think about 3 skills and write them into the chat. Don't worry, you don't have to confirm or connect with them, but try to figure out 3 skills that you think you're most accomplished or really carry you forward day in and day out across a lot of projects that you do in your current role. Shante, thank you. Leadership, mentorship, and data analytics. So leadership and mentorship are going to be 2 durable skills. Data analytics is going to be technical skills, and data analytics probably has a bunch of other sub skills behind it, and is always changing because of AI and the importance thereof, which is brilliant. Umar, extracting insights from complex data. a super underutilized skill. A lot of times we talk about I can look at the data, I can build a chart, but it's actually the person who can extract what the data is telling you and tell a story. Oh, so useful. Jeffrey, professionalism, empathy. What a great durable skill. And that is probably one of the skills that will continue to rise in the World Economic Forum if I had to estimate. Cybersecurity, James, amazing. I would probably double click on that and try to write 3 more skills, maybe two technical that align to cybersecurity, and then one durable, because you do need both, especially in this world. Complaint handling, whew, yeah, that's hard. Power BI, that's amazing. And more. Thank you all so much for sharing this. And so let's just think about all these jobs, right? And let's think, well, you have these amazing talented jobs, but what if you just wanted a job as a business operations coordinator? Don't worry, you don't have to commit to this, but this is just an example. So in this role, you'd be managing daily operations, coordinate between departments, you'd track project timelines, you'd do a lot of documentation, you'd ensure processes run smoothly across the organization. So if we had to look at all of this, can someone tell me a skill that they have that would transfer really nicely to this role and why? Once again, you can raise.
Maybe you want to move your image to the other corner because
Oh,
it's just on the text. And I think
we'll just do
on
it this way.
the, yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mirta.
Then we can see all the day-to-day tasks.
All right. So, Patricia, you said adaptability. Yep, that's one going to carry us around for everything. But definitely, if you're looking at project and business operations, you need to be able to adapt on a fly to a new timeline, a new budget constraint, and more. Time management, that is the crucial one. And it's an underrated one. A lot of people think they're okay at time management. Some people think they're good. And usually, what I find is you're one level below what you actually think you are. Time is amazing. If you ever want to get a little timer, I have one. Say you're going to write an email and time yourself. Trust me, it took you longer than you thought, unless you're using AI. Emotional intelligence, an amazing transferable skill, right? And then think about those technical skills, right? A lot of times when we start talking transferable, we get really into durable skills. But if you can use a database right now, you can probably build a Gantt chart or a project management tool or timeline or budget tracker in the future. If you can use Excel, you can use this. If you use Monday, so don't forget about those technical skills that transfer from one job to another, even though they seem really different. Even if you were in cybersecurity and doing all this technical, there's technical skills that you've used every day that could work for this business operations. So let's try it again. What if you were just a marketing associate? So you're supporting campaign execution, you are going to create content, analyze performance data, manage social channels, collaborate with creative and sales teams to drive brand awareness. Marketing is changing a lot from AI, but marketing managers are not going anywhere. You still really need the human in the loop. So it's a really cool job to have. And your day-to-day tasks are content creation, campaign analytics, and more. So what transferable skill would you be able to bring to this if you were doing something like translate? The person who noted that they were able to extract key stories from data. How would you be able to apply this in a marketing role? And would that allow you to excel in a greater way than just a traditional person who's great at writing? A lot can go into this role. And what happens usually is, once again, the person says all the work they did, but they forget to identify, translate, and then transfer the role to something. This might seem very basic, but when an employer looks at marketing associate, they are going to look at your previous experience and they're going to try to find as much like for like. Have you worked with social media? Have you done Hootsuite? Have you a blog example? Have you done an analytics campaign? Can you do this? But a lot of what has been just used there is the same as business operations. You were internally getting a lot of approvals. You were communicating in a written way to meet the audience at the end. In the business one, it was probably just adapting to what your manager maybe needed, what external stakeholders. And this is trying to find the lens of your audience and user personas. You would have to try to figure out how to liaise with your graphic designer as well as your project manager for approvals. All of those are really, really similar. So now what you need to do is just figure out if they're so similar. Once again, the hiring manager, I'm not going to figure out why they're similar. I don't care. I have too many applications. But if you can show me why they're similar, you can translate that, then we are in a better situation for all. So, once again, the first three things that we're always going to do to pivot your career is identify, recognize the transferable skills you already have from every role. You all wrote down three. You should be able probably to write 50 to 75. And once again, you should probably want about 30% of those to be technical skills, even though technical has the highest risk of being outdated because of AI. You also still can upskill. So, really, what happens with the technical versus durable is your durable can make you adaptable, agile, learning, and more so that your technical can continuously be updated. So you need a balance of both. Some people lean too hard to technical. I'm only cybersecurity. I only care about coding. I only care about this. Well, that's going to be rude awakening in AI. And others only have durable and they're not building those technical. So you want a balance and you want to remember that each one plays off of each other. You're able to learn really well these new technical skills because you built up your durable skills. Then you want to transfer, understand how these skills apply across the different industries. That's important, but the most important thing you can ever do is translate. You need to articulate your value to the employer in their language for their needs. That is the most important thing we could ever do. So, to give a real world example of how I always talk about this translation is my brother recently worked in a role for 1 year and he was up for a promotion. In this promotion, he was going to have to apply and interview against 5 other candidates. So previously, he had worked 8 years in a role, and this time he only had 1 year in this previous role. And so I was working on with him on interview prep, and I said, "Hey, just out of curiosity, if you had to answer all these questions based on your experience, which one do you think you'll use as an example, your current role or your previous role?" And he thought, and he goes, "Well, naturally, I just have a lot more stories to tell about the 8 years. That's a long time. I have growth stories, I have story arcs. I'm probably going to talk about my previous role more." And I go, "Great. Well, if you want to do that, we can absolutely make that work. And that's what you should do. You should give the best answer of your best example of your best experience that aligns to what they're looking for. But then every single answer needs to end by connecting back to what it would look like in this role. Don't just say what you did, paint the picture of what you will do. So, everybody's probably heard of STAR. If you haven't, please go look up STAR interview techniques. Everybody should have it. But STAR is a way to answer an interview, right? So what we do is kind of make sure that we don't go off of tangents, go off on crazy ad libs or ad hoc unnecessary details in a story, that you can keep really focused and you can really always explain what was the situation, what task did you have to do, what action did you take because of that task, and what was your results. It allows for an interviewer to really easily capture what you did and allows for you to always be able to structure your answers on the fly and once again not go off lib. But really it's a lame answer. It's a lame suggestion. It really forgets the most important thing, which is the bridge. Or I sometimes say tie it back in. So I say start instead of star. STARB is a weird acronym, but you really need to note here's how this shows up in this role because you can have experience in a completely different industry, job, country, and more. But if you can do the translation and bridge that, you can take whatever experience you had and start painting the picture of why you belong in the future. And that's really what the bridge is. The bridge is what separates talking about your past from selling your future. I can almost guarantee every last one of you is really good at talking about your past. You lived it, you know it. You're probably great at that. Selling your future might be the thing that's missing in this career pivot as you identify, transfer, and translate the skills that you have. So, back to the kitchen remodel at the very, very beginning as we continue to tie things up. And remember that if you were looking at the kitchen, what we first wanted was a portfolio of past projects, and we want to see it as similarly as my current projects. So that's your experience. We're then going to look at reviews and references. That's your network, your social capital, your portfolio, and all of that. And then your verified and trusted work, proof that you can deliver. These are the things we're going to look for, remodel, but that's what I'm going to look for when hiring. But ultimately, when I'm speaking to the person who's remodeling my kitchen and they're giving me a bid and they're saying everything, they're not just going to say, well, this past kitchen I did this, and this past kitchen I did that, my past kitchen I did that. The person who's going to win my business, win all my money and my grief of remodeling is the person that says, well, here's what I did. And this is how it will do it for your kitchen. This is how it will look for yours, or this is how I'll try to adapt this to that. That's the translation piece. That's the last one that gets you hired and needs to show up on your resume and CV and in your interview, and then readily show up in your job. So there's a couple ways to test if you've successfully identified, transfer, and translated. One is the wrong job test. So read every bullet of your resume and CV and just ask yourself, if a hiring manager for the role I want read this, would they see themselves hiring me? Or would they try to hire me back into my old job? Is it saying what I did or what I can do in the future? If your resume CV would get you rehired into your old career, you haven't translated it. You're only created a resume that shows you where you put in the past, not in the future. The other one, and I kind of like this one, you got to be snarky when you do your review, which is for every bullet point, every pitch statement, you can ask, so what? So if you say, hey, I managed a 6-table section during peak hours at Olive Garden, you could go, so what? Why should I care as a healthcare admin hiring manager? And then you could go, okay, well, you should care because I can manage competing priorities. I can triage needs in real time to ensure every stakeholder received timely quality service. That's the so what. If you can't answer so what for the new role, the bullet isn't working. The previous bullet, managed a 6-table section during peak hours, probably works really well if you were applying to a new server position. It tells you the size of your sections, it tells you the scope, and whatnot. For the role that you're pivoting, remember, I don't know what a server does. I don't really know the skills. I'm lazy, I'm overwhelmed, and I have too many applications. I'm not translating for you. So if you could translate that you manage multiple competing priorities under pressure and triage needs in real time, now I'm beginning to see it. I'll still need some more technical skills. That's why you're getting degrees. I'll still need some other things, but now you're ahead of the game and still instead of competing against all those career pivoters. So this 3-step framework really is looking at what did you do, right? So you're going to identify, I managed a 6-table section during peak hours at Olive Garden, processing 40 plus covers per shift using the POS system. And what transferable skill did that prove? So we identified, now we're going to transfer. Multitasking under pressure, technology adoption, prioritization, customer service across diverse populations. So what? How does that show up in the role I want? Experienced in managing competing priorities in high pressure environments, quickly adopting new technology systems, and delivering consistent service across diverse stakeholder groups. That's what we want to see. Now, you do want to make sure it stays honest. You want to make sure that it stays relevant and in the system. If you ever think about The Office, there's this great episode where one of the managers internally is a hiring, but he's only ever had that job. So he starts saying moved 1 billion paper products, and he's talking about paper sheets, right? That's kind of an exaggeration. You don't want to exaggerate. You don't want to lie, but you do want to be able to identify, transfer, and translate because that's what they're looking for. Do you know these technical skills? But if you don't have the like for like experience, you have other experiences that you could lean on, like priorities, managing competing priorities in high pressure environments that would get you through a healthcare admin job. And so that's what you need to make sure in your resume that you haven't just stuck at number 1, what did you do? But instead you've identified and translated it to how does that show up in the role that you want? Now, unfortunately, there is always this future proof in your career. So we have all these skills, we're trying to pivot and manage, but the skills that will carry you forward are the same transferable skills that we've been talking about. And that's really not the coincidence. Like I said, that durable with your technical is going to get you through. And we know that the top skills rising in demand based on the World Economic Forum is AI and big data. That's no surprise. Analytical thinking, resilience, flexibility, and agility, creative thinking, curiosity, lifelong learning. If you're applying to jobs right now, you actually might see AI come up a lot. People will just ask a simple question. How did you use AI to unstuck a problem recently? Or what creative ways did you use AI? What they're asking for is not just, do you have AI technical skills? What they want to see is, are you curious and lifelong learning? Are you adapting to this new technology quickly? Are you creatively using it in ways that we haven't thought? And are you agile in the face of ever changing skills? So they've just asked you a technical skill, but they're going to assess some durable skills there as well. And all of these things are what keep you afloat as jobs change, as roles require upskilling, and as you yourself change passions, needs, capacity, and want to transfer careers. So ultimately, I hope that you take away from this conversation that you need to build experience. But all experience counts. You yourself just need to unpack it. You need to translate it. And you need to spend a lot of time realizing that you're probably not translating it to the efficacy that you are. You're probably Spanish 1 when we need Spanish 5 on your resume, right? We need to make sure that you take a lot of time to unpack what that means for the relevant hirer, because they don't want to translate it for you. They don't want that. You have to paint the picture of how you could succeed in the future role. 2, I talked about in slide 2, but it's still really important. Build your network. It's still the number one thing that gets you hired. It's social capital. We can give you all the experience. We can give you all the technical skills. But right now, AI makes it really easy for everybody to make a resume and a cover letter. It means that all these jobs are overwhelmingly getting more and more applications than they ever have before. And all the words are matching perfectly to the job description. So what does that mean a hirer to do? It means they're going to go back to everybody in their network and say, do you know someone good for this role? Because I can't translate 3,000 resumes, but I could just take 3 references and work there. So the network, still the most important thing. And 3, learn to translate. Don't just say what you did, paint the picture of what you'll do for them. And always be thinking about that. Did I tell them what I'll do for them based on my past experiences? Or did I just say my past experiences? Because once again, I'm not going to translate for you. It's just the annoyance of job searching is that the hiring manager is not translating for you. You have to be the translator. So transferable skills are that bridge, and articulation is really how you're going to cross that pivoting of career. There's a lot more we can talk about and a lot more time that you can spend in really trying to unpack those transferable skills. And we definitely have 12 more minutes in this webinar to ask any questions or any thoughts that you're thinking while you build experiences and talk about updating your resume and CV post internship to try to put more of those transferable skills, experiences, and hiring signals out for the employer. So really thank you for joining and for being so engaged and chatting. But if you have any questions right now, do type them into the chat box or Q&A or raise your hand.
Amazing. Thank you, Jillian. So what questions we have, please use this moment to get Jillian's advice, expertise. I was thinking, Jillian, for those who are doing their internship at this moment, right? What piece of advice could you give in how to really use this internship experience to identify, translate? How can we use this experience to really start pointing out our transferable skills? You heard my question, Jillian?
No, sorry. Go for it again. Sorry.
I asked that how can we take advantage of this internship experience to really start identifying, translating, and having a sort of a map of where we are in terms of our transferable skills?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing is all jobs have a standard level of skill that you're going to need. The number one skill that I think so many people don't realize that they have, or maybe they're still building, is managing up. Managing up means that you are able to understand what your manager needs, proactively work with them, but also understand their leadership style, the cadence in which they speak, the cadence in which they communicate, so that you can come out on top. So in your internship, one of the things you're going to be doing is building a rapport with a supervisor. And one of the skills each and every one of you, no matter who you're working with, no matter what career field and whatnot, is going to be about managing up. So in the first case, always be considering that. Am I good at managing up? And consider what experiences do I like about this and what kind of manager do I like? That's a great way to think about it. But it's also a short experience, an internship. So it's also your whole onboarding and learning. So each and every time you get something new, hey, welcome to my company. You're an intern. I'm so excited. Today we're going to use Slack, Monday.com, and Google Docs. These are the three technical skills we use. And every week we're going to have the check-in. Think about, okay, well, did I use any of these skills before? Did I use Slack, Monday.com, and Google Docs? Okay, I used Google Docs. Okay, so the other two are new to me. Now think about, what skills did I apply to learn them? Okay, well, it was pretty easy. I'm a 90s kid. I used AOL chat. Slack's not that different. So everything was okay. Monday.com. Oh, well, it's much like a CRM system, but it's just planning. I was able to take those skills. So start thinking about, every time you do something new, you can retroactively think, well, what got me here that I could succeed? Or if you're not succeeding, what could have helped me in getting there that I could maybe hone for the future? The hardest thing about skills is that the first thing that we do is we forget to define them, right? We forget that there's a whole long list of skills. Even this great group of interns right here, 28 of you, when I asked you for what skills, if you looked at the unique skills given, it wasn't that long of a list. Even though if I went to AI right now and said, give me a list of durable skills, they'd give me 50. And I could say, give me 1,000 more. They could give me 1,000. Skill lists are long. And so what we need to work on in our everyday is to better articulate, okay, what is skills that I'm using? Better define them. And then in the future, you'll be better able to articulate them, because in that moment, you were able to pause, identify, and then reflect. And then in the future, you can spend more time translating. But a lot of times we're just going through our day to day and we're like, oh, yeah, I wrote this email, I did this, I did this. We're never thinking like, okay, well, I managed a lot of customer service today. I stopped a fire from happening by identifying this data trend that in the future is going to really help us in the long term. And I did this. All these key skills were used today. I don't think about that. I think I'm really tired, I'm exhausted, and I did this, right? And so if you can take more time to kind of think about, okay, this is a new skill, this is a new process, this is a new project I'm doing. These are the skills I already had and I'm applying. These are the skills I don't have, but I'm learning. Now you're better able to just move in the world of skills. And that's just the hardest first part. And then the second part is now figuring out, well, now I have all these skills and I've accomplished them for this role. How do I package them in a beautiful picture for my next role, making the language different, the articulation different, and everything different, because I had to translate it from one hiring manager, one company, one context to another. And that's the transformation or the transferability of skills. So just
Excellent.
start
Thank
thinking
you.
about it more.
So we have one question in the
Oh, yeah.
Q&A section.
Cool.
So someone is asking, do you personally see the candidate resume and help them translate their past experience and bring it to the past, to the present and the future job they are applying to?
So do I personally? No. Like, yes, if my brother calls me, that is my job. I have some friends. And this is what I will tell you. When I mentioned making a network, networks are all about reaching out and doing an informational interview. Networks, a lot of times people think like, oh, it's my close friends, my family, and my colleagues. No, network is just someone you liked on LinkedIn and you had a short chat on, right? So if someone reaches out to me and says, hey, can I ask for this? I'm always trying to put good karma into hiring out there. And I usually say yes, unless I'm asked by 50 times. If you reach out to a hiring manager or recruiter, they didn't get one email today for an informational interview. They got 1,000. So you're not going to hear a great response. But if you ask maybe the person that's in your like role in the company, they won't have that question today and they'll be able to support you. So there's different ways to get that kind of candidate resume, translate experience, and bring it to the future. So one way you could use it is you have 2 coaching calls at Virtual Internships, 30 minutes each. Coaching is so valuable. For me, it's very expensive, but it's included in your program. Use it. If you want to spend 30 minutes to bring your resume and ask them to help you identify and translate skills, that's amazing. The other way you can do it is there are some really cool AI tools out there now. My favorite tool, by and large, is called Career Span. So, bless you, Mirta. So, Career Span, it allows you to give a job description or maybe give your resume and say, hey, can you ask me some questions about this? And then you dictate it. You don't type, you just talk. You go, I experienced this. And they'll ask you another question. And you can go, well, I did this, this, this. And then they'll ask you another question about it. And you do it. And you do it and basically until you say, hey, I have no more to give you on this topic. This is the bottom of the barrel. And then they go, great, let me translate all of that to resume points and to an interview answer. And they really are great at trying to help you tell the story and then translate it. AI is pretty bad at you just being like, identify my soft skills, my durable skills. Well, they don't know who you are. So Career Span is using AI, but first they're making you tell the story of who you are, asking some relevant questions to identify it. So if you haven't been to Career Span, it's free and I highly recommend it. I really love it. You can also just do this with free AI, ChatGPT, Claude, whomever you're using, but make sure you understand that AI will fill in the blanks. They want to appease you. They want to give you an answer. They're never going to say, I don't know. So if you say make a resume, they'll just fill in the blanks and make a resume. But if you give it the context first of who you are and whatnot, and let you know that you need to ask some verifying questions to unpack your transferable skills, then it will help you. But it will always give you an answer. So even if you don't tell you who you are, it will make up who you are. And now you have a bad resume or CV. So try to figure out how to tell a story first and give AI the relevant information within whatever you feel comfortable with in privacy to then get those outcomes. And that's why I like Career Span. It's more structured in that way. So use your network, ask for informational chats, connect with people, ask them to look at your resume, those who are in your industry. Use your coaching calls. You get 2 of them. That's amazing. If you want to spend 30 minutes talking about transferable skills and showing up your resume, come prepared with your resume and talking about that. And 3, figure out what tools with AI, with career development and more are going to make your life easier. Like I said, for me, it's Career Span.
Amazing. We have 2 questions. Let's see to cover at least one. So it says, someone says, I have over 10 years of experience in IT technical roles, and it seems I keep getting recruiters for only project management roles. I want to pivot in, and I just landed a marketing internship, but how can I market myself to receive roles outside of project management?
Oh, yeah. So, Shante, first you might want to just put your resume into with private things removed into AI and just ask it, what roles do you think I should be hired for? You can even take your LinkedIn and say, what roles do you think I should be hired for? That answer is going to be telling. If it says project management, then great. Your experience is project management. But what you have not done is what I just talked about for 40 minutes is translate it to marketing. So then the next question we need to ask is, okay, I have identified these 10 skills. And once again, you can use your coach to help you. You can use our career bridge and our curriculum to help you. You can use your network to help you, but identify those skills. If I have those skills, can you help me translate my resume to be more applicable to marketing? Now, an internship that you're doing right now, it's going to be so useful. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be great because it's going to give you experience directly in the career field that you want. And that's really, really useful. It means that you don't have to translate as much, right? You just have to articulate really well. And once again, you're not articulating what you did in the past. You're still articulating what can you do in the future. But it still means that you're probably telling the wrong story. A fun thing that LinkedIn just did is they started saying like jobs that you're really good for. If those jobs don't align to the job that you want, it means that your resume isn't aligned to the ATS, which is the applicant tracking system. It's not aligned to have a recruiter find you. So now you need to go back and translate it so that it is aligned. That's going to be crucial. If LinkedIn is telling you should apply to this job and that's not the job you want, what your page is telling you what the page is telling people is that you belong in this job, not the job you want. You need to translate the content. It's going to be really important. So like I said, use coaches, use the curriculum, use AI, but use your network and figure it out from there. I wish I could spend one-on-one time with all of you going over and advising very specifically, but lucky for you in this program, that's why we have those coaching calls. Please do feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I am the one who helped create Career Bridge too, so I really, really advise you to take a look at the curriculum and figure out what works for you. But unfortunately, our time is up and I do have to head to another meeting or else I'd hang out with you more. But I really appreciate you all for attending. You've shown proactivity, you have shown resilience and agility, all just by attending this webinar, all between the hours of 2 p.m. and 1 a.m., which is really, really impressive.
Thank you very much, Jillian. It has been very, very useful. I think you've shared very relevant information for all of us. And I'm sharing Jillian's LinkedIn, so you can add her on your LinkedIn account. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I wish you an excellent day, wherever you are. And see you next time in our next career webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.